Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Groppo. I'm one of the registered dietitians at Stanford Healthcare and one of the diabetes educators. And we're doing a 3-part series on garden vegetables. We did one on tomatoes and talked about how to make different dishes, 3 different dishes with tomatoes. And now we're going to talk about cucumbers today. And then finally, we'll wrap up with squash on Friday at 12. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Chen, who's one of our endocrinologists here to taste test, give some of her own ideas, and to kind of just share the space and time with us.
So thank you so much for having me here. And so as I was mentioning before, Leah is one of the most talented dietitians as well as the best cooks I know. So when she asked me if I wanted to participate, I jumped at the opportunity to be her taste tester. So excited to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, thank you all. So we're inviting you into our kitchen. And we kind of wanted to just jump in and really talk about all different cucumbers. So we were chatting about the different types. And when Dr. Chen and I were kind of talking about what we wanted to do today, she was like, there are so many types of cucumbers, right? And I said, yeah, there are yellow ones and green ones and pickling ones and non-pickling ones. She's like, what's the difference? So we wanted to bring some commonly used cucumbers to talk about before we get into our recipes. And so one of the ones that Dr. Chen mentioned, Julie mentioned, is the Persian cucumbers that she purchases and uses in her own recipes. So that's kind of these smaller cucumbers. They have a really light flesh, and they tend to be really crunchy and mild in flavor, because we know sometimes cucumbers can actually get really bitter in flavor. So I love to garden, as Julie knows, and for some reason, all my cucumbers always come out really bitter. So I love to share the things that I grow in my garden as well. And I would share and give people these cucumbers, and they would go, "Oh, it's okay. I don't need any more cucumbers from your garden. Thanks for offering." And I was wondering, I normally don't get a rejection from my garden offerings. And I was trying them, and I realized it was because the cucumbers were so bitter. And so I did extensive research into bitter cucumbers, and I found out certain brands and types and species of cucumbers can be a little bit more bitter. And so different cucumbers, like typically like the general ones you find in the grocery store, like these ones with bigger seeds, they tend to can sometimes yield a little bit more bitter flavor. English cucumbers tend to be more mild and less bitter, less flavorful. We also have lemon cucumbers, and I've actually never grown or had a bitter lemon cucumber. So if you are like me, grow bitter cucumbers in your garden, I'd say try to go with lemon cucumbers. They go really well in this area. And then Persian cucumbers tend to not be as bitter as well. So just kind of thinking about the different varieties of cucumbers and how they sort of fit into your own recipes. We also kind of wanted to sort of cut into these different cucumbers and sort of show you. So if you can see Persian cucumbers, they have really light skin, and then the small shape. So they're great to use skins. You can wash them and use the whole part. When we have lemon cucumbers, if you look inside, it's mostly seeds and a lot less flesh. Lemon cucumbers, if you can smell, I feel like that has such a nice cucumber smell. It makes you think of summer.
First time I ever saw one of these is actually from Leah in her garden. And I didn't even know it was a cucumber, but she said, these are the types of cucumber I grow in my garden, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good flavor. And I switched to these because I've never grown them bitter. And I feel like every other type of cucumber I've been able to grow in a very bitter way. So these are mostly seeds. Sometimes they're fun. You can peel them because the outside is not great to eat. It's really chewy and extra fibrous, sometimes prickly. You can peel them and pull out the center part. I actually have a spoon I can show you, almost like this. And then you're kind of left with a really fun little bowl. If you wanted to make a gazpacho or something like this, chop off the little bottom part. And then if we peel it, you have this little bowl that sits. You can serve it if you have a nice dinner party, fill it with shrimp or something, make it fancy. We also wanted to show you'll find these oftentimes in the store, kind of in plastic. So English cucumbers, you can peel back the plastic. They're kind of have a flavor profile very similar to Persian cucumbers, a thin-ish skin that you can use as well. So that's a great option. They tend to not be bitter. And then the last one that we wanted to kind of highlight is just kind of a general, your run-of-the-mill cucumber. These ones tend to have a lot more seeds in them, and the seeds are a lot thicker. So if you can see the seeds versus the seeds in this cucumber, it's a lot different. So this one is a lot kind of finer and softer, and this one has a lot more seeds. So it just depends on what kind of recipe you're using and what you prefer. My favorite kind of cucumber is actually Japanese cucumbers. So I really like them because I think they're extra crunchy, extra crispy. They rarely are bitter as well, and they give a lot of texture to the dishes that you're making. Versus sometimes these general cucumbers can be like, feel that one, it's kind of soft.
The skin is a lot thicker on this one compared to some of the other ones that you have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the bitterness also comes from the skin too.
Yes, and this one I would recommend peeling because the skin is definitely going to be a lot more kind of chewy and maybe wreck the mouthfeel. But if you're looking for insoluble fiber, so we love to talk about fiber, it's my favorite topic, and this is all insoluble fiber, like the roughage, the parts that's like scrubber brushes in your colon, that healthy fiber. And on the inside, the fleshy parts tend to be more where the soluble fiber is, which forms like a gel in your stomach, slows gastric emptying, helps you to stay more full. Both are really beneficial and healthy for your gut and your overall body. They feed your gut biome and keep it nice and healthy. So this is kind of our general takeaway around cucumbers, but I think the biggest takeaway is there's lots of types. They all have a variety of places that you can use them. There's also pickling cucumbers, which I don't have. They tend to be small like the Persian cucumbers, but multicolored, maybe different greens and yellows with a very thick skin that you can also use if you want. So whatever you have at home, they all work in these different recipes. Okay, so let's get into cooking because that's why you all are here. So let's start with our first recipe is actually one that I learned from Julie's mom. So it was actually really interesting. Julie and her husband were having a party, a taco-themed party. And in this beautiful buffet spread, there was this big glass jar full of cucumbers. And I looked at them, I'm like, this does not look like it fits with the food theme, but I've got to try these. And they were the most delicious cucumbers I had ever had in my entire life. They were like salty and sweet and sesame and garlicky. And I was like, Julie, where'd you get these cucumbers? They're amazing.
So my mom brings these cucumbers everywhere. We have them in our fridge constantly, and my daughter loves to munch on them. So whenever my mom is at any event, you will always find her cucumbers.
Yes, taco events, any type. But I've come to really enjoy and look for them if I'm ever around. Because they really are so delicious. And so definitely whenever I find a recipe that I enjoy and I really like the flavor of, I always think, how can I get my hands on what ingredients go into this to try to recreate it at home? Because I love to do that and think about different recipes. And so when I asked your mother, she said, oh, well, you put a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then you taste and you just make sure that it tastes right. I was like, okay, I like that kind of recipe. This is my kind of person because that's how I typically cook. And so in creating these recipes, I kind of had maybe 4 or 5 different iterations and had lots of taste testers to try them out. And this is sort of the ratios that we came up with. I think typically in this recipe, there may be a little bit more sugar, but I tried making this recipe without any sugar in it at first and had lots of samples and didn't get great feedback. So I've added just a little bit for a balancing of that kind of sweet and salty flavor, but definitely not that much. Probably in the entire recipe, there's about like 4 carbohydrates total in sugar from this recipe. So something that's not really very high. So with these cucumbers, I normally cut off the different ends and I don't know if you all have here, this is like a meat pounder. I like to use this. Does your mom use this? Do you know?
I think what we do is we just take a knife and then there's like smash it on the side. So the key is that you don't want to cut it, you want to smash it, because I feel like it sucks up the juice better. So we like, or I think this is a cleaver, and then she'll just mash it on this style.
Okay. I'm gonna do my meat pounder. So this is like,
everybody has a different strategy. What works for you? Hammer, cleaver, meat pounder. Whatever you got.
Okay. Well, this is a food safety meat pounder. Doesn't get used that much for meat, but cucumbers definitely. So you just kind of hit it as you go, and you sort of pound it. And like Julie mentioned, you're really trying to. Oh, cucumbers are fine. You're really trying to kind of sort of pound it down. So all of these parts of the cucumber are going to suck up this flavor that we're going to add to them. And smashing cucumbers like this, I feel like elevate the flavor option, because instead of just having like maybe a round slice of cucumber that you might dip into something, now you have all this absorbable surface area, right? So now like all this part in here is gonna absorb flavor, and you're gonna end up with a really delicious, for unforgettable option. Clearly, I've like not forgotten this recipe from your mom, and I make it all the time. Whenever we have cucumbers now, I've made it with lemon cucumbers, which is not so advisable, hard to smash. But whenever I get Japanese cucumbers, definitely. And then you just want to chop it in like maybe ½ inch, sort of little sections. If you can see right here, it's like about ½ inch, but it's kind of still falling apart because we've smashed them with our meat smasher. And so I just kind of go and slice as I go. Is this the kind of the width your mom chops them at?
Yeah, okay. I think so. And I've been very impressed. So my mom, the way that she explains recipes to me, she'll be like, you just add it in and you just keep going until it tastes right. And I've never been able to recreate it, but Leah's cucumbers are pretty comparable. And so I've been impressed that through a couple of iterations, this recipe gets close.
Oh, you're so sweet. I still think your mom is definitely gold standard. And I feel like the one that I've created for this class is maybe a little bit lower in sugar, but I still think it tastes pretty good. So hopefully you all enjoy it as well. Okay, so I'm gonna just smash one more side of cucumbers. And so I think it's also great. I feel like this recipe, if you have like a hard day, you just need to like kind of get some aggression out or something, you can smash cucumbers and then end up with a delicious meal. It's all good. Definitely a great thing. Okay, so we're in our final chopping stretch. And as you can see, it kind of like they all sort of almost fall apart, making it really easy to chop. Okay. We have like maybe a cup and a half or 2 cups in here. And then next, we use a tablespoon, which I poured out, of toasted sesame oil. So the reason why I use toasted sesame oil is because it gives so much more depth of flavor. Is this what your mom uses?
I think so.
Yeah, I feel like that's what she told me. Because they actually toast the sesame seeds before they press the oil out. And so the real benefit of that is you get this really aromatic, you can kind of smell like toasty, nutty smell and flavor. And it really infuses more versus just sesame oil would be from raw sesames, which I mean, is good, but that's more of an oil you want to cook with. This is more like what I would call like a finishing oil, an oil that you're not cooking with necessarily, because if you cook a lot with it, the flavor gets a little burnt tasting, but more of like you add to salads and give lots of extra flavor too. So in this recipe, I have a scant teaspoon, just a teaspoon, not fully full to the top of sugar that I put over. And then, because I love to make things that are pickled, I have a very large size, just vinegar container. So I wanted to show you all how big it is because I feel like I go through these so fast. And so with this, I just have, where did my tablespoon go? That one's not totally, but I have half a tablespoon of vinegar, hard to pour. Gave a little bit extra. You can never go wrong with more vinegar. It gives it like a fun kind of like puckery sort of flavoring. And then I just finish it with just a little pinch of salt. And that's the recipe. And then before I serve this, I normally, oh, I forgot. The secret ingredient, a piece of garlic. Before I serve it, sometimes I'll toast my own sesame seeds on the stove, and I'll just put it in like a nice bowl and sprinkle a little bit on top. And I feel like that kind of gives a really nice presentation. I feel like, I'm sure your mom's presentation is probably very amazing, and I'm sure she does that. So for garlic, I just kind of smash it. And in this instance, I press it. And the reason why I press it and I don't mince it in this one is because I really want them to be small pieces of garlic, so it infuses all the garlic flavor and they mix. Versus like when you mince, you get these like smaller sort of pieces but very chunky, and I feel like my mincing is not as good. Okay. So here is our salad. You want to give us some? Does it smell?
So good.
Yeah, good. And then I have this kind of serving bowl that I wanted to serve it in. And then I thought the hard job of taste testing. You can let us know if you feel like it would taste like your mom's recipe. From here.
Beautiful.
This is what it looks like. Oop, we had some extra dripping. And so this, and then just imagine putting like a little bit of sesame seeds on top and adding this, having it in your fridge like your mom does, just kind of putting it around and making use of it is great. You want to try a taste. And then I think I saw a question, someone's just asking me the brand of my toasted sesame oil. It's, I think, OI with an exclamation point. But you can buy them in any grocery store. It's in the oil section, any Asian grocery store. I think I probably got this at Costco because it's big and it works really well.
Delicious. I think that it really adds, I feel like plain cucumbers to me don't have very much taste, which I think is part of why they're so good for dipping. But the garlic and the sesame oil really add a depth of flavor and make it really refreshing and a nice, cool summer snack. And I also want to mention that although Leah is correct that the toasted sesame oil does give it a little something, there are definitely times when I've just used plain old sesame oil and it still tastes good.
Great.
So
I love
in a pinch, you can still use whatever you have at home.
That makes me happy. I really like, I feel like in general, I love recipes that are flexible. And honestly, I rarely measure. It's so funny preparing for this, actually. I feel like I haven't had to drink very much water because I've been sampling. I think I've probably, over the last week, probably had 10 cucumbers, full cucumbers to myself. So I feel like I'm overhydrating with cucumbers because actually cucumbers in general tend to be about 95% water. So they have a little bit of vitamin K, a little bit of fiber, and some other magnesium, things like that, but it's actually predominantly water. So cucumbers, especially today is a very warm day, something like this, finishing your day with a cold, crisp cucumber salad is a great way to also get hydration. Because we get hydration from the food that we eat, not just the things that we drink. So for example, when I'm working with people and they really want to lose weight and they're eating different amounts of food perhaps than they were before, we really do want to amp up the hydration and the types of foods that provide hydration and drinking water, because we miss out on a lot of that hydration that we get from our foods.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's great. Thanks for being my taste tester. And I'm glad we can tell your mom that I was listening when she was explaining what to do, which is great. Okay, now we're going to move on. Or do we have any questions? Let me see. Any questions? So we should have the recipes, either they'll be linked after, but we can also, the recipes are in the chat. So you can look at the recipes there too. Okay, so let's grab, let me grab this. So I'm bringing back tomatoes. I just couldn't say goodbye to them fully. And then this is kind of a different recipe, something that I'll kind of throw together when I have multiple types of things that I want to eat from my garden. So thinking about this, this is kind of, I think Julie and I were trying to think about what to call it. It's like, has a little bit of a Mediterranean essence, a little bit of smoky flavor. It's definitely a different flavor profile than the last recipe. When I was thinking about the tomato recipes, I realized a lot of the options I made had kind of the same ingredients, which is one way to think about a positive because you don't have to buy as many things from the store. But I also wanted to give a lot of diversity and flavor and taste profile, especially with cucumbers, because they do just absorb things so well, and they can just be so delicious. I think they're really definitely one of my favorite things to eat. And also, as we were thinking about this, I realized a lot of the ways that we eat cucumbers are just crunching them, like taking a whole cucumber and slicing it up and just eating it plain. I don't always add all this flavor. So that's always an option. You can always think about just getting a whole cucumber, dicing it up, and throwing it in your lunch bag.
Yeah, but I think that the nice thing about these recipes is that they're also super quick and easy. Like you guys saw Leah do that in like 5 minutes to prep that, and it tastes delicious.
Yeah, and we did all the prep right now. Yeah, your mom's recipe is probably my go-to cucumber recipe. One of my favorite things. Okay, so this recipe, I'm just calling it cucumber tomato salad, but hopefully it's so much more than that. So we're gonna start with our bowl, add in a tablespoon of olive oil. When we think about trying to get in more healthy fats, maybe we're thinking about lowering our cholesterol. One of the best ways we can lower cholesterol is substitution. So if before we used to eat saturated fat, like say, maybe in a recipe we use butter or something that was more saturated, or had like chicken skin on our chicken that we cooked in or something like that, removing the skin, but cooking in maybe with some olive oil or adding a unsaturated fat to replace the fat we had currently had is really how we get big changes in our cholesterol and our lipids. So not just adding. So I think there's so much great data out there saying, hey, olive oil is really good for your heart. It's good for your lipids, your cholesterol. But if we just start adding in a whole bunch of olive oil to the foods that we eat, our cholesterol actually may rise because there's more fat coming into our body, versus that substitution is more what we want to think about. We want to think about where are the places that we consume saturated fat, solid at room temperature, and then how can we reduce that or eliminate that and replace it with unsaturated fat, like an olive oil, something that is pourable at room temperature. So in this salad, we have 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And then for this one, instead of smashing, I think you could smash, but I actually like dicing. So I just take my cucumber, you all can see, cut off the little ends and slice it down the side like that. And then I just kind of go and I chop. So I have like little half smiley faces. I feel like these are great bite-sized pieces and they're totally fine. If you want something that's like a triangle and even more bite-sized, then you can always cut again in half and then you kind of get an even smaller portion. But I think that just like the half is fine. It also depends. I'm a huge fan of trying to get meals on the table in 15 minutes or less. And I feel like the more you do chopping and fancy chopping, the slower things are. And I think that how you chop for a family meal on a weekday can be different with how you chop for like a food party or something like that.
For sure.
Okay. So we're gonna just keep putting those in. And these cucumbers, especially when they're not smashed, you'll really get like a great crunch. this is like, I love how all cucumbers are kind of just like different sizes. This is like a little bit larger one, and some are smaller. So it's hard to kind of measure, but if your cucumbers are a little bit bigger and you use 2 or 3 for these recipes, they're all very flexible. So you can use more or less depending on whatever you have. And in this recipe in particular, I think you could always grill chicken and add grilled chicken to this recipe. You could add tofu to this recipe if you wanted to kind of round it out and make it more of a meal. You could think about adding chickpeas to this recipe, I think would go really well. So it's definitely very flexible. I think I have some leftover corn from an ear of corn I might add if I was making this more for a meal to add some carbohydrates. If I wanted this to kind of be more of a meal and less of a side. Here are all of our cucumbers. And then for this one, I am going to add some basil to this. And again, what I do for basil is I normally kind of like wrap it kind of like in a little round kind of piece like that. And then I chop into like little ribbons. And I try to kind of keep them thin. I always think about the thinner, the more you can kind of chop and give some surface area that lets you have the flavors of the basil, the more it's going to kind of like infuse into your dish. Keeping my fingers out of the way. And then if you want, you can give it like a chop the other way too. Like maybe 4 or 5 larger leaves of basil, but flexible. Like if you like more basil, you could always do more. If you like less, you could do less. And then here's a red onion. So I'd say like about a 1/4 cup of onion chopped. This one's kind of a small one.
Yeah. Do you always use red onions for the recipe, or can you use other types of onions?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So I feel like red onions have a little bit lighter, more mild flavor, better raw. You could do like sweet onions, like they have a Maui sweet onion that would be great in this recipe. I'd say like yellow onions and white onions, like the general ones, they do bring more spice and kind of like I don't know, the word popping into my head is like vivacious flavor, a lot of flavor. So if you want that, I think you can. But
more of that sharp onion flavor. Sharp, yeah.
That's probably a better way to describe it. Sharp.
I like vivacious.
Vivacious
onion flavor.
It's fiery. And I just kind of feel like whenever I'm thinking about recipes, you know that I don't cook with recipes that often. I just throw things together and hope it works out. But I always want to think, how are the flavors going to marry together in the bowl or whatever I'm making? And if we have like a really, like maybe pungent is a good word. I don't know, like a pungent onion with like that sharp flavor, it's going to overpower something so subtle like a cucumber. And then cucumbers really only going to be providing like a crunch and a texture and not be able to like be the star.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I feel like today cucumber has to be the star because it's the title. But like tomorrow, if we do I don't know, an onion one, then maybe you put more onion in and then onion's the star. So up to your preferences. So for onions, there's multiple ways that I like to cut onions. Sometimes I like it in like long, thin pieces, and sometimes I like it diced. This recipe, I prefer it diced. So I'll just kind of cut down the sides. And then as I go, I will cut them this way. This onion's like small, it's a little bit harder to navigate, but we'll do it. And then I'll just cut down the other side to sort of give a nice dice. And I feel like for me, I know there's like the onion glasses, things that you can wear. Sometimes I'll just refrigerate my onions and then they're less aromatic and they give less tears.
That trick before.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like it works, but purple onions typically don't make you cry that much. So that's also another option. I'm going to put more in. Feeling like an onion option. And if you ever want like onions to maybe provide more of like a sort of sweet-ish flavor, you can always roast them or grill them on the grill or saute them. I like for this salad to have more like fresh and flavor and have crunchy things. So I wouldn't do that. But you,
yeah, different options. I like it.
Yes, always options. And I like with cooking versus baking, because cooking you can make, today you feel like garlic, tomorrow you feel like dill. You can just kind of do whatever you want or your preferences, versus when you bake, you kind of do have to follow a recipe. Otherwise things might not rise or might not work. And I feel like sometimes there are so many rules that we have to follow in life that with cooking, I don't like to follow rules. I like to just go for it and see what happens. So sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work as well. I love the feedback of, this is not my favorite thing that you've ever made, from my family. Like, oh, not their favorite. I'm like, that's okay.
Maybe that just means you make so many good things.
Oh, okay. Glasses, half empty or half full? Half full.
There you go.
Yeah, see, I like that. I also wanted to pull out, these are little tomatoes from my garden. They're called blush tomatoes. Have you ever seen them?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't have them, I don't think yesterday or last week, but even when you cut them open, you can see they have like a really beautiful, like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. One of my really dear friends actually grew these tomatoes and started these from seed and gave me a plant. And so they've done really well and they seem happy in my garden. So I'm happy to share. Okay. So we're gonna put these are like little large cherry tomatoes. In this recipe, I like cherry tomatoes because I feel like, one, cherry tomatoes are a little bit easier to grow. And two, because they have so much flavor and they're also like small and very manageable to kind of cut and deal with. But with that, and also with some of the strange shapes, kind of like you can get creative how you cut them, which is kind of fun. No rules, right? No rules in how you have to do that. I'm sure if you're like on the Food Network or something, there's probably rules, but in my kitchen, no rules with how you have to cut tomatoes. It's just whatever you feel like. Okay, gotta get chopping a little bit faster. But I just love the variety of different tomatoes and how they bring so many different flavors and sweetness to different things. I think that's so delicious.
And your dish looks beautiful because there's so many different colors in them. They just look, however you chop them, the color scheme looks spot on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we have some green, some purple, some pink. I feel like that's always fun. It's also really fun too, like if you have kids, to experience different colors in different foods that we consume, right? There's different colors of tomatoes. Sometimes I like specifically will try to grow things. My daughter's favorite color is red. So we try to grow a lot of red things because it brings her a lot of joy and happiness. And it brings me happiness to see her so excited about growing things.
Are these from your garden too?
Yeah, all these are. Okay, I feel like we're in a good place with this. So if we kind of mix and stir, think how all those colors are kind of coming together, but we still very much have a cucumber forward sort of dish. You can change the ratios up if you want, but the thing that makes this a little bit more fun is I'm adding smoky paprika. So I love the flavor of smoky paprika. It kind of, it gives like this added depthness of flavor, I think, and like smokiness. When you tried it, you're like, oh, something's different. So I normally just kind of add a dash. It's probably less than an eighth of a teaspoon, but just kind of like sprinkle it on like that. And then I also put just a little bit of ground cumin. I twisted that off, but it has a lid. Yeah, I probably would have accidentally, that would not have been a dash, that would have been a dump. I would have dunked it all. Okay, so I just like to kind of also just sprinkle that on. And then to finish with a little bit of salt and pepper. Oh, right here. Okay, just a little bit. You can add some pepper too, and kind of mix that all up. And then for this one, I like to kind of think about adding some white wine vinegar. You could also add red wine vinegar. I feel like these are a little bit maybe like sweeter. They have a little bit different flavor than like a distilled vinegar. There's so many options. You could also add like a balsamic vinegar if you wanted like a little bit sweeter, thicker flavor. I just add like a teaspoon. This is how I normally cook. A little bit of that, a little bit of this. But for these recipes, I actually did back it up and I started measuring and I taste it and like, oh, that's not quite right. Add a little more, measure it. So hopefully it works out for you and your taste profile as well. And then the last thing that we add, because it's my favorite thing to add, is a large clove of garlic. That's also very satisfying. And smashing garlic. Before I used to like sit and peel it.
I don't know how people peel without smashing.
I don't know either. I used to do it, and then my brother, I feel like, told me, oh, you should do it like this, and so I elevated my garlic option. I just feel like cooking is just almost like one way to socially connect with people. Like we learn other people's recipes, and I really don't feel like anyone owns a recipe anymore because somebody in the universe has probably made something very similar, but we share our food and our recipes with everyone. And maybe someone has something very similar. Maybe in your home, you make something very similar to some of these recipes. And I just love that we can kind of share food and get to know each other through food and sharing recipes. It's one of my favorite things. Probably why I'm a dietitian.
I also feel like whenever I find a recipe online, I love reading the comments, and I feel like that's where the money is reading people's comments on the recipe and seeing like, how do people make it their own? And you notice that some people will continue to build off each other's comments and say like, I tried what this person did, but I also added this, and it just further enhances the recipe.
Yeah, I love that. I also just love that we all can be participants in someone's recipe. Like someone can put forth a recipe and then you're like, oh, my family likes it like this or like that. And you can give feedback and thoughts. And I feel like we don't get that as much in baking, because baking is more like it rises or it doesn't rise. Like your brownies work or they don't work. And so I feel like, but with cooking, it's very flexible. And there's like an art to just building the flavors. And I really love that. I feel like that's so fun. And it's accessible to everyone. Like we all can get in our kitchens and make dishes. Do we have to do it all the time? Do we enjoy doing it? I mean, that could vary person to person, but finding the things that you do enjoy and the flavors and involving family and friends around your table, I think makes it super fun. One of the reasons why I'm a dietitian, actually, did I ever tell you the story of why I became a dietitian?
No, I don't think before.
It's so funny. So when I was in high school, I actually was part of this special STEM program around getting women and minorities into science. And so I had to take a physics class and like some special math class with this cohort of people. It was actually a research study to try to track us and see if we would end up going into science. And at the end of it, if you did well in your classes, you got an internship at NASA Ames when it was still up and running. And so, yeah, I completed it. And when they asked where we wanted to go to NASA, I was like, I want to help astronauts to have healthy bones when they're coming back, to like preserve bone mass. And so they ended up kind of putting me into that direction. So I learned all about astronauts and their nutrition and everything. And come to find out, it's more about gravity. But I had this spark of food and really highlighting to people what we put in our bodies, like is what we can get out of our bodies. So really thinking about how food is a benefit. So they followed up with me like maybe 5 years after I graduated high school, and they asked me if I was in the science domain. And I was like, I think nutrition science, take a lot of science classes. So maybe that worked, but I think they were hoping for physics and like mathematician, which was not what I was going to do. I mean,
well, that's amazing. I feel like now you're able to make an impact, and really, I think diet is so important. You know, as a doctor, we focus so much on medications, but diet is such an important part of our well-being and can help people feel stronger and be well. And so we're so lucky to have you in our clinic too to help guide patients. All right, I am up.
Maybe I should chop them smaller. What do you think?
The smoky paprika, I think, makes the dish.
Yeah, I feel like it adds something different. Yeah, a little bit extra flavor. And like with more vine ripened tomatoes, it adds up that sweetness.
Yeah, I think this one is like the first one is more like crispy, refreshing, sort of a side summer snack. And this is a deeper, more almost like savory side dish.
Yeah. Wow. Which is why you could make this into a whole meal. And you could add like grilled chicken or tofu, marinated tofu. If I did that, I'd actually put balsamic vinegar in it because tofu and balsamic really goes super well. One of our advanced practice practitioners, Katie Judge, she did a whole marinated tofu cooking demo a couple years back. You can find it on the Health Library website. I think it's Kathleen Judge around salads, maybe 2 years ago. And her marinated tofu recipe has become a staple as well. It's so good. I really like it. And then also Jessica Shipley just did a not your average salad recipe. And she had a lot of like cucumber-based salads too, some Mediterranean themed ones. You can also go check out the Health Library and see all of her salad recipes. And I love that we all can kind of share our family recipes, family favorites, things that we like to do. Okay, so we're on number 3. So we've done 2. So we did the smashed sesame cucumber salad, and then sort of the more savory, flavored depth tomato cucumber salad. So finally we have, I wanted to give a spicy cucumber salad. So this is something that I actually picked up. There's a show that I love, Top Chef. I really enjoy watching Top Chef, but it's hard when you do it at night because I get really munchy. Like, oh man, all those things sound good. Let me start whipping up some things at 10 p.m. So I try to watch it earlier in the day. But there's one of the winners was Melissa, and she, I had a cooking class, and so I ended up taking it because I was a big fan. And so in that cooking class, she taught us how to make a sort of garlic, red pepper flake sauce. And so I make this sauce, and I actually put it over cucumbers.
Nice.
So we're going to do that. So also, she did not have measurements with this recipe, but I put them into the recipes for you all. So this one, you just kind of chop off the little sides. With this, you could do 2 things. I normally keep the skins on with my cucumbers. I wash them really well. If you get them from the store and they feel really waxy, sometimes I'll like rinse them in a little bit of like water and vinegar and try to scrub the wax off a little bit more. But these ones, like if they're more from your garden, there's no wax. So just wash them. And I actually like for this recipe, to chop them like at a diagonal, because I feel like that kind of gives a nice shape. Sometimes I'm gonna also cut it a little bit in half as well because that's a really large bite. I need my taste tester to come back. One of the things actually that my mother-in-law does that taught me about cucumbers as well is, do I have a vegetable cooler? Grab one. You can actually take your cucumber and just like peel off strips, but leave sort of like a line. So then you end up having like this nice little like different way to present your cucumber. So if you chop it like this into little circles.
I feel like that's how restaurants do it.
Yeah, like restaurants. Yeah, and it's kind of adds a fun extra color and kind of some extra fun, and it keeps half of the insoluble fiber attached. So we're gonna do a crazy little double batch of some circular, some kind of with a little edge cucumber to see. Oh, chopping fast now. Gotta keep my fingers out of the way. Oh, it's multitasking. It's good for the brain, I think. Okay, great. We're good. Oh, this is actually more than what fit in my little bowl. Okay. So I just chop up the cucumbers, and then I add a teaspoon and a half of just crushed red pepper flakes. This is actually a fun recipe. Like sometimes if we get pizza as a family, you get those little crushed red pepper flakes, and I'll just get a couple extra if I don't have like one from the grocery store, and I'll just use like 4 packets into this, and then it's a great thing to sort of make and add. So that, and then we also have some garlic. I use like maybe 3 smaller cloves of garlic. And these ones I definitely just smash, I don't press. So I smash it, and then it kind of is a little bit smashed like that. Maybe a little more. And then, oh, that was like a really hearty smash. Oh, today was actually a great day, not a hearty smashing garlic day. And then I just peel off the garlic. And I like to have the garlic well smashed because when we put the garlic in the oil, it's kind of like a fried garlic oil. You want all these little ridges for the oil to get in and sort of help saute. So here's my little dish. So when Melissa taught us, it was, I think, like a cup of oil or half a cup of oil, a lot more. This is just 2 tablespoons, just enough to add like enough oil to kind of fry our garlic. So we just take that and put our garlic in, and 2 tablespoons might feel like a lot, but this can make this cucumbers plus like this times 8 probably, or maybe 4, because the sauce stays in the bowl. So I keep like refilling. So only a little bit gets added. So in the end, you don't end up having a lot of that. So if you can see, it kind of looks like that, just lightly coated. And then, oops, I'm gonna move this over here. And then Julie, if you don't mind sort of helping rotate us to the stove so you all can sort of see what that looks like. We'll go over there. Okay, yeah, that's perfect right there. You can see some extra my water. So I just kind of turn on my stove, put it to medium heat. And I normally, with this smaller amount of oil, I'll actually kind of just like keep it rested a little bit. So it's all the little pieces of garlic are in the oil part.
So is the goal to try to like seep the oil with just this garlic infused flavor?
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Yes. And also to get these crispy, sort of garlicky, delicious, crunchy pieces in, but really it does just infuse that garlic flavor into the oil. And it gives like, such a good flavor. And then the most fun part is you get to pour it over the red chili flakes, and it kind of like bubbles and sizzles and almost cooks it. And then the oil takes on this like beautiful red color, and then you can add a little bit of soy sauce, but not too much for the sodium, and then toss it, which I think just so good. But only if you like spicy things. I actually am not that great with spicy, but this, I feel like because there's so much garlic flavor, I'm willing to have a little burn in my mouth because the flavor just kind of tastes great. So as it's cooking, the garlic is kind of sauteing. You can kind of hear, I don't know if you all can hear, but
I feel like this oil would be good with a lot of things too.
Yeah.
You could probably just save it and use it for
actually very similar. So for the zucchini recipe, sometimes I'll grill zucchini and I'll demonstrate that. And then I'll make kind of like a garlic oil and just pour a little bit over the top, but I won't have added any oil before. So I'll like dry grill it and then just add it at the end, and it gives it like a nice flavor. I don't always do it on the stove. Sometimes I do it in the microwave. So we've got like a really nice, like kind of like oily, you can start smelling it.
I can hear it.
You can hear it too. Yeah, it's kind of making like a little bit of that like frying noise. And I hold it like this just so that the garlic pieces are still submerged in the oil, because there's so little oil for this that if you put it flat, the tops of the little garlic pieces aren't going to get the oil. So you really want to like kind of crisp the whole way. Give it a little toss. Normally I do this on a lower heat, but because of timing and everything, I wanted to do it on a little bit higher heat. But if you can kind of see, kind of making that sizzle, and then if you pour it in that heat stable container, I don't know if the sound's picking up, but it's kind of like sizzling.
Oh, the smell too.
Yes, it's
gonna rotate you back.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, great. And so it's kind of like sauteed and fried in here. It's hard to sort of maybe see.
Oh yeah, like the oil's really picking up the flavor and the color.
Yeah, you can kind of see the red and then the really kind of toasted tan pieces of garlic. I like my garlic really crispy, so sometimes I'll let it go a little bit longer. And then at the end, it's gonna be hard to kind of put this on all of them. And then I just pour it over the top. And then I'll take this container and I'll actually refill it multiple times. So sometimes I'll leave it in the fridge and let it sort of infuse all the different flavor that way. And then finally, I'll just add like maybe half a teaspoon or something of soy sauce, just a little bit at the very end.
You'll keep that container, the one that you mixed it, or
this one? Yeah, this one.
Got it. Just so the cucumbers can soak up the oil flavor.
And the garlic flavor, and then I'll re-put more in.
Oh, got it.
And sometimes if I'm feeling like I want something more sour flavoring, I'll add some vinegar to this, and that also goes really well. I'm actually going to grab you a fork. I feel like forks are probably easier to eat this than with a spoon. But this is where it looks. See how all the chili oil and flakes. I can show you like a piece of toasted garlic. Whoops! Piece of toasted garlic. This one nobody will eat. Don't worry with my hands. I'll put it there. But
thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming and eating. I feel like it's so hard to eat when you're trying to talk and cook. And so it's great to have someone else who can do the eating part for you, because sometimes like the cucumber, it takes a while to chew, right? And so you're trying to chew and talk. It's too much multitasking.
The chili oil has a really good flavor. I could see how letting it like soak it up would really, really make the cucumber a lot more flavorful too, but really good, really spicy, has a nice little kick to it, but really good.
Yeah, good. And I just feel like sometimes it's good to like just have a little spice, and maybe you eat less of it, but it's like a good accompaniment to something else that you want to have. So those are the 3 recipes. I guess we can, I can grab them so we can kind of remember what they are. The sesame cucumber recipe, the tomato cucumber recipe, and then the chili oil cucumber recipe. And I just feel like all these are different flavors and things you can kind of adapt to your own life and what you like. And hopefully one of them is calling to you that you want to try to make, and hopefully you can think about going and buying different cucumbers and trying them.
No, this is such a good kind of variety. And so I'm such a creature of habit. I always buy the same type of cucumbers, make them the exact same way, but with this, there's like new ways to cut. We learned about different cucumbers that I never knew about. And each one tastes so different, but they're all very crisp, refreshing, and healthy.
Yeah, great. And it's so fun to eat during the summer. I feel like we get so much great hydration from cucumbers. And I mean, the reason why we mostly is because things are delicious. And I feel like all of these, hopefully, I think that they're really tasty, and I hope that you all do and your family does. Yeah, great. Does anyone have any questions or comments? So somebody's asking, what type of variety of cucumber am I using in the second recipe? So all the ones that I'm using here are the Japanese cucumbers, because those are the ones that my plant is doing the best with. But the other ones I actually purchased from the store, but it could be done with any of these. You could do all these recipes with Persian cucumbers, like those smaller ones. Those are the ones that Julie said that she buys at home. And then Oh, somebody's asking, can the smashed cucumbers also be with regular ones, or do they need to be peeled? So if you want to do the regular ones that you find in the grocery store, the one, let me grab the sort of skin. If you see, the skin is a lot thicker on these. You could still smash it. I've actually not tried. We can do this in real time. Where's my meat smasher? Okay, let's see. I feel like we would be okay, but not so. I don't think the skin is too hard. Yeah, I don't think that the skin is too sort of thick and rough. They kind of smash out the side, but they don't really get that significantly larger surface area. But the Persian cucumbers work really well for the smell. Yeah, so I would go Persian or Japanese cucumbers or the English cucumbers I've made, but sort of like the general, I think they're like called hothouse cucumbers or something. The general ones, I might not try them as our first option when you're trying to evaluate if you like the recipe or not. But if you like the recipe and then you have them on hand, then I would get creative. But give the recipe the best possible chance first. And then we can definitely email the recipes to everyone too. I think somebody's asking. And then the recipes are also in the chat. And then also Jillian also put in the summer meal prep from Kathleen Judge. So you can see if you're interested in that marinated tofu recipe, it's so good. It's like garlic and balsamic vinegar, and it's like so savory and delicious. Like it really sucks up the moisture and flavor. Yes, so that is also linked, and Not Your Average Salads from Jessica Shipley is also linked. Also, Andrea did a great salad sort of recipe as well. So lots to look at the Health Library. These are great. I might have to go check them out after. Yes, I hope that you do. This has kind of been a really fun thing that we've created from the pandemic. We've invited everyone into all these different dietitians' houses and talked about how we make different foods that we're passionate about, because I work with so many people that just say, like, how do I make healthy food delicious? Or like I'll ask in classes, like, what does healthy mean to you? And people like, somebody will mumble, not delicious. I'm like, oh no, I must do something to help this. This thought that healthy food isn't flavorful and delicious and amazing, all these great words, because I really think that it can be. I mean, if we only sat and just ate a cucumber raw and plain, I like it like that. But when we have the option to amp up flavor with chilies and garlic and sesame, yeah, why not try? I feel like it's good. Yeah. We're going to see something. I was so excited. I think my thing is that sometimes the internet is a wonderful place, but those recipes can be really intimidating with like 20 different steps and 20 different ingredients that I don't have in my house. And all these recipes are so accessible that they're all stuff that I already have at home, and they're all quick and easy. And so that's really what I go towards. And so I love that these are just super accessible. Oh, that makes me so happy. Yeah, we really hope that these are things that you feel like you can try to do at your own home and put your own spin on them. And then we have our last zucchini. I love zucchini. I feel like I'm a zucchini champion. So my husband does not like zucchini that much, but now we eat it all the time. And so I'm always trying to rework ways to make it delicious. Plus, I feel like zucchini plants in this area do really well. And so we get lots. Somebody told me the other day, I tried to give them zucchini, and they're like, everybody also always wants to give away zucchini because they have so much. But she told me, no, thank you. Which is funny. But yeah, so hopefully we'll see you back in a couple of days at lunchtime, and we can continue on our 3-part series. And thank you all so much for your time and your feedback and thoughts. We'll send out the recipes on the email list to people who are joining, and they'll be in the link too when we post. So thank you all. Have a great night. Bye. And big thank you to Dr. Chen and Julie Chen for coming, one of our superb endocrinologists and also a dear friend, being our taste tester and giving. Always happy to come and taste Leah's food. Thank you. Guys. Bye.